Good morning, Boyd Buchanan Elementary. Today is Wednesday, May 6th, 2020. Our theme verse for this year is Ephesians 3:17. Then Christ will make his home in your hearts as you trust in him. Your roots will grow down into God's love and keep you strong. We have two birthday buccaneers today, Layla Templeton and Phoebe Early. Happy birthday to those friends. We hope you have a special day. Well, yesterday was a wonderful day for our teachers. It was Teacher Appreciation Day, and so many of you did special things to honor your teacher. I found a poem, and it's written by a 9-year-old girl named Emily, and she wrote this about her teachers, and I want to share it with you this morning. My teacher, a word that takes me back to the start of my very first day at school. I tightly clenched my mother's hand. I was afraid to let her go. But suddenly somebody held my other hand and all my fear flew, 'cause there was someone to understand. She wiped my tears and took me to class. I am glad that I lived under their guidance. They taught me all they had. Like a tree, I have reached heights, for my strength reunites. Teachers are my preachers. They'll live in my heart forever, for they have given me strength to endeavor. They are my most precious treasure. Teachers are a treasure, and we love our teachers at Boyd Buchanan School. They are our true heroes. And we want to recognize and honor this week our Mrs. Floyd, Mrs. Hedrick, and Mrs. Lusk, and their assistants, Mrs. Brown and Mrs. Barnett and Miss Ingram. Our kindergarten teachers, Miss Sessions, Miss Smith, and Mrs. Zumbrun, and their helpers, Mrs. McInturf, Mrs. Johnston, and Mrs. Morgan. We want to honor Mrs. Hunter, Mrs. Turberville, and Miss Butcher, and their assistant, Miss Kent, and our wonderful second grade teachers, Mrs. Tompkins, Mrs. Halstead, and Miss Woodruff, Our fabulous third grade team, Miss Matherly, Mrs. Ray, and Mrs. Holland, and our fourth grade heroes, Mrs. Boynton, Mrs. Smith, and Miss Ringgold. Our fifth grade teachers, Mrs. Rudolph, Mrs. Beasley, Mrs. Jones. Our wonderful elementary SOAR team, Mrs. Bowen, Mrs. Mathis, Mrs. Rogers, and Miss Cup. Our enrichment teachers, Mrs. Floyd, Mrs. Daniels, Mrs. Harrison, Miss Beckham, Mr. Ledbetter, and Mrs. Greer. We are so blessed to have such a fabulous elementary team at our school. Thank you, teachers. We love you, and we hope you have another wonderful day. Well, we have a word of the day today. It's Wednesday, and our word for today is rare. R-A-R-E. Rare. I'm going to use it in a sentence. Boyd Buchanan is a rare and special place. What does the word rare mean? Well, I hope you have a wonderful day of learning. I miss you. Let your light shine.